Hey, it's Matt from Black Hole Woodworking. Welcome back. Today I'm making a Scottish Spurtle, and this is traditionally used for stirring porridge or soups, stews, any kind of thick thing that you'd normally use a spoon for, but a Spurtle helps with making it easier to stir. This video is going to be done mainly in real time unless I bump my camera or skip sanding. This is a continental spindle rough and gouge. I use that to knock off the corners and then switch to the skew. I think that's a 1-inch skew chisel. I tried roughing with the continental spindle gouge this time just to see if it gets me a little closer to round quicker. For sure it's a little less harsh on the skew, so I'm thinking I might have to sharpen it less often, which is a plus, keeps me working longer. You'll notice that as I'm cutting, I'm using a planing cut. As I go back, I can also cut, so I kind of get dual action, as it were. I've got a lot of material to take off yet, and if I can keep cutting in both directions as I move left to right, I find that more efficient. So now that I'm round, I am going to get my measurement. This spurtle is going to be 12.5 inches long. The max diameter is 1 inch round, or 25 millimeters. So I'm using my calipers to get me down to that, and then I have a better guide so that I can use the skew to plane off the rest of the material. These cuts are some of the most satisfying cuts as a wood turner. Just that being able to go back and forth left to right, cutting in both directions, for whatever reason, really cool. Once I'm down to the guide cut on one side, getting the other side's actually a lot faster, because now I can use that line to just shoot straight across and take off all sorts of material. Here I'm using the heel of the tool to plane down that last little bit, and then we're good. The tailstock makes a hole in the wood on the end, so I'm cutting that part down so I know how much wood I've got left for the spurtle. You'll notice the wood start to rattle a little bit more as I cut near the center of the piece, and that's because the wood's getting thinner and it's flexing, and so it just causes a bit of rattling. Marking out is really important, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm just using my skew to put notches for the main points that I need to keep in mind, like the center of the dip on the end of the spurtle and the marks surrounding the bead that I'm going to cut. So I made one of these before and I'm just using it as a template. To cut the bead, I first clear some space on the side with some V-cuts. Then I use a type of peeling cut to cut the round sides of the bead. You really have to move the tool handle over further than you think. We'll zoom out in a bit to see another form of that when I finish off that bead. But for now, I'm creating the thistle of the spurtle. That's the handle. I'm tapering it down to meet the bead that I made, but I'm not going to taper the far right side there. I'm going to leave about an inch and a half-ish of it mostly flat. That sort of mimics the Scottish thistle that I had on screen there. And on this side, I'm trying to meet the same dimension. I nicked the bead there, so that's going to cause me to have to rework that bead slightly. But yeah, if I can mimic the size on this side as well, then it looks like the kind of the stick part goes right through the bead as one piece, almost like you would apply the bead after. Here's another zoomed in view of me cutting that bead a little more round, which I wanted to do anyway. And this is how I look from a bit of a further view, so you can see how I hold the tool. I basically grip it in my left hand and turn it in my left hand while my right hand is holding it firmly against the tool rest. And I don't switch hands when I switch sides of which way I'm cutting. I'm always holding it with my right hand firmly against the tool rest. So to create this end of the spurtle, I'm doing another bead on that side, and then kind of a tapered bead going toward the center of where my mark is there. That mark is to show me the lowest point in the spurtle. Now I've got to make the middle of the bead match the tapering down to the stirring end of the spurtle. The belly of my spurtle's a little on the big side, so I'm going to bring that back down too. I want this to be a little bit thinner so it feels a little more elegant, and the whole idea of a spurtle is to not be hard to stir with. You know, you would be able to make porridge and kind of take out all the lumps with it and scrape the sides of your bowl and not have the stuff stick to your spurtle as easily as it might to a spoon. That kind of idea. And now I blend the two sides together. To finish the end of the spurtle, I am tapering just the last little part of the end there, and then I'm going to nip off that chunk that's attached to the lathe with the bandsaw. But I want to also add some decorative lines here. This part's always fun. So I used a few V-cuts to cut those grooves. I'm only going to go with 2. This next part's great because I grabbed a guitar string and push it firmly into those grooves. If you don't push hard enough, you don't get enough heat generated. So you got to push hard. And these grooves and lines really help define the spurtle. To me, it makes it look a little more elegant, a little more professional. I like them. Anyway, I didn't like the shape of that end here a little bit, so made a fine-tune adjustment. It's always fun making those when you're near the end of a project and you hope you don't get a catch or anything like that. I know if you weren't thinking it, I was thinking it. This is a 180 grit sanding mesh. You don't need to see all the sanding, it's just sanding. This is shellac I'm putting on. It's what's used in candy coating. So it's a food safe finish and it'll just help protect the spurtle a little bit. To finish off the business end of the spurtle, I've got to get that end nipped down as small as possible. That's always a bit of a gamble. You want to go as small as you can without making the whole thing fly off the lathe. So once you've done a few spindle projects, you kind of get a sense as to how small you can go. Different species of wood have different strengths too, so experience is a good teacher in this case. This time I got that size just right. Can snap that off easily. And then I use my skew to nip off that end and a little bit of sandpaper on that, and we're good to go. And then on the back end of the Spurtle, I just run it against my belt sander to smoothen that up, and then I add a little finish on the ends. And then we are done. Hope you enjoyed the video. Shoot me a comment and give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. Thanks for watching.